I used to think the sound of a key in the lock had only two meanings: the person you love is home, or you forgot to blow out a candle. That afternoon, it meant both: home and something burning. I was supposed to fly in late from a corporate training in Phoenix, but the last session ended early, and I caught an earlier flight. Sean didn't know. I remember the small, smug thrill I felt at the thought of surprising him, the way I smiled at the rideshare driver like I was hiding a good joke in my pocket. 9 years of marriage had taught me 1,000 micro maps of Sean's voice, his silences, his shoulders when he was happy and when he was pretending. I was not prepared for this one. I set my suitcase down as quietly as I could, because we're always gentle in our house. The living room was dim in that mid-afternoon way that makes everything look like an old photograph. For a moment, I felt something like déjà vu, a memory of the first year we lived here, when the couch belonged to someone else and the walls were the wrong color. Then I heard music upstairs, a playlist I didn't recognize, something with strings that made my skin tingle like champagne. I half thought he'd planned something. I half thought I was being ridiculous. I opened the bedroom door. I opened a door inside myself I didn't know existed. Sean stood by the vanity we never used, under the warm lamp I always thought was too yellow. He wore a knee-length navy dress I'd never seen, soft fabric with a sash tied in a loose bow at the waist. Sheer black pantyhose made his legs look like glass in good light. A brown bob wig framed his face in a way that made his eyes look enormous, and the makeup. It wasn't clownish or secretive. It was careful, like someone had listened closely to his face and helped it speak. He held a lipstick in one hand, and his other hand hovered mid-air, as if he'd paused during a sentence and forgotten how to finish it. In the mirror, I could see his mouth form my name. I don't know if he said it out loud. It wasn't the dress that made my stomach spill out of me. It was the familiarity in the way he looked at himself, like this wasn't a costume, like this was the relief after a long task. I made a sound I don't remember. It wasn't a scream. Sean, my husband, my best friend, the man who convinced me that IKEA furniture could be assembled without declaring war, turned and reached for the wig instinctively, like he was apologizing to it. "Kate," he said, voice dropping into that apology register I hate. You weren't, I can explain. I would love to give you the version where my first words were wise and soft, the version where I held his face and said, "I love all your forms." Instead, I said, "I have to go." And I did. I walked down our stairs like I was walking on something that could crack if I breathed wrong. And I left the house and sat in the car and looked at the steering wheel and remembered that in ancient Egypt, hearts were weighed against feathers. Mine felt like a stone. I drove nowhere, which is to say, around the block, pretending the loop was a journey. I parked in our driveway and watched the garage door blink like a patient animal. Then I went inside. The house smelled faintly of my perfume from the morning I left and of something powdery that wasn't mine. I found Sean on the bedroom floor, the wig on the nightstand like a pet that knows it's done nothing wrong. He had taken off the dress and was sitting in sweatpants and my college t-shirt like a boy in a borrowed body. His face was bare, except for the faint shadow of eyeshadow that never fully wipes away. "I'm sorry," he said, which was a way of saying, "I'm scared." "I don't know what to do," I said, which was a way of saying, "I'm scared too." We didn't solve it that night. We did the small human things, avoided the sharp edges, ate toast because toast asks nothing dangerous of you, laid in bed with all the space between us, and still found each other's ankles under the sheet like proof. I cried in little bursts, like my eyes had hiccups. He sat very still as if motion could smash the room. Before sleep, he whispered, "I've done this since I was a kid." It landed between us like a birthday no one celebrated. Age, weight, truth. The next morning, coffee tasted like you make it when you're trying to find a familiar road. I asked the obvious questions and the wrong ones. Are you gay? Are you a woman? How long? With whom? Why didn't you tell me? Why did I not know? He answered with patience he owed me and didn't owe me. No, I don't know. Since I was 10, in the privacy of closets and borrowed afternoons, no one else. Because I was afraid. Because you didn't ask the question whose answer would have required me to blow up our life. I told him I thought we were headed for divorce. I said it like a fact I didn't want to confirm. He nodded as if someone had finally said the part of the diagnosis in bold. "If that's where we're going," he said, "I won't fight you. I'll miss our life for the rest of my life." Then he looked at me the way he did on our wedding day when we turned to face the future and bumped noses a little. "I love you," he said, "and I don't know how to stop doing this without stopping being me." The day unspooled. I went for a walk and hated the sun for being cheerful. A neighbor waved, and I waved back like nothing in my house had changed shape. In the afternoon, I sat on the edge of the bathtub and stared at the grout and thought about being 26, standing in a borrowed dress on the night I met Sean at a friend's party. He'd made a ridiculous, charming joke about subtitles. He'd mixed me a drink and asked permission before he touched my wrist to show me a line in a book. He was the first person who made me feel like my laugh wasn't too loud. He was the first person whose silence didn't scare me. 9 years had been an accumulation of small, very good things. I did not want to set them on fire. I also did not want to ask my heart to live shut. So I proposed a ceasefire with a plan inside it. 2 months, I said that evening, of curiosity, not decision, questions aloud, no hiding in our own house, and therapy, both together, and you on your own, and me on my own. He nodded so fast I wanted to slow his head down with my hand. "I will try," I said. "I can't promise I'll land anywhere but honest." He put his forehead to mine like we were whispering a password. "Thank you," he said into my skin. The first week, I learned how much I didn't know, that cross-dressing wasn't new or rare or necessarily about sex, that for Sean, it was a relief, a quiet permission to exist in a different posture. He showed me drawers I hadn't opened, and I didn't feel betrayed by the silk as much as I felt struck dumb by how carefully he'd curated a part of himself in the dark. He didn't have a name for his feminine self. He wasn't sure he wanted one. He liked wrap dresses because they didn't lie about bodies. He liked sheer black pantyhose because of the way they made light polite. The wig wasn't about being someone else. It was about the way hair can reframe a face, the way a gold frame reframes a painting. In therapy, a woman with kind eyes and steel in her spine said, "You both get to feel how you feel, and then you both get to decide what you do about it." It sounds like a sentence from a chalkboard. It saved me from trying to be a saint or a judge. Sean cried in front of her for the first time I'd seen in years in a room with furniture besides ours. He said, "I'm scared that being honest will cost me my life." I said, "I'm scared that accepting this will erase the marriage I love." The therapist said, "Grief doesn't only happen when things end, it happens when things change shape." She told us about expansiveness like it was a muscle. She told us to go somewhere together where we could watch people reinvent in public and not get hurt for it. So on a Thursday, we went to a bar where Thursday was drag trans night. I wanted to hide in my jacket like a turtle. Sean, in jeans and a pullover, squeezed my hand like he was trying to learn Braille from it. The room was neon and velvet and the kind of dark that glows. A queen named Misdirection emceed with the kind of humor that can both soften and sharpen, and every time she said, "Make some noise," a room full of strangers made the kind of noise that reminded me of church before I learned to be suspicious. We sat in the back and didn't order drinks for a full song. Then a performer walked out in a green sequined dress and lip-synced a torch song like she was setting something down you weren't ever supposed to lift again. People tipped and cheered, and the woman next to me dabbed her eyes with a napkin and gave me half her fries without asking whose side I was on. Toward the end of the set, a shy person in a simple black slip took the stage. The MC said it was their first time, and the room quieted. The performance wasn't polish, it was permission. When they finished, I realized I was holding my breath and that my heart was thundering in the good way. The way that says something is becoming true in front of you and you are allowed to love it. On the way home, the strip was still the strip, ridiculous and alive. Sean drove with both hands on the wheel like a student. "What are you thinking?" he asked, the way people ask when they know the answer isn't short. "I'm thinking the world is bigger than the room I have been willing to stand in," I said. Then quietly, like bending the sentence so it would fit in my mouth, I said, "I'm thinking I want to see you. As her, not because I have to, because I think I might want to." The next Saturday, we practiced like it was a dress rehearsal with no paying audience. We put on music we both loved. He asked if he could do his face in front of me. I said yes and then went very still while he did. The process was not foreign. Foundation, blush, a patience with eyeliner I have never possessed. But the attention he gave the mirror was different, like he was greeting a friend and not interrogating a suspect. He chose a tea-length floral dress with pockets. I would later steal it. And those sheer black pantyhose that now felt like an inside joke we shared with the light. When he turned toward me, something in my chest eased, like a fist opening. He was still Sean, his hands, his laugh, his way of standing too straight when he's nervous. The wig was a frame in which I could see the softness I loved, even when he woke up and grumped about coffee filters. "I don't have a name," he said. "I don't know if I need one." I stepped close because there's a distance you can only close with your whole body. "You do, but it's not required," I said, smiling. "Sean works in both directions for me." He let out a breath that came out a laugh. He's never looked more like himself than he did in that moment. We started going to the Thursday nights as a habit, not a dare. We found a table we liked that had good sightlines and an unexplainable draft. Queens began to recognize us, tipped us for showing up, like we were the ones performing consistency. I watched, over weeks, the way gender can be both theater and truth, the way some people stood taller in stilettos, not because of the heel, but because of the permission to take up vertical space. I learned to distinguish a beat drop from an emotional drop. I learned that the bathroom was the safest place I'd been in years. The first time Sean went out dressed, I was the one trembling. We planned like we were going on a heist. Flats in the tote, makeup for touch-ups, a spare safety pin like a talisman. He stepped into the night, and the night did not swallow him. A man on the subway looked and then looked away, like he'd seen a cloud do a trick. A woman smiled the way women smile when they put an extra napkin in another woman's hand. I was angry suddenly at how easy it could be for the world to be kind and how often it chose not to. Sean squeezed my palm. "Hey," he said, light in his voice. "This is us. We're okay." In the bar, Misdirection clocked us and winked. "You look like a before and after," she joked into the mic, and then said softer, "You look like love." Something shifted in me that month, then 2, then 5. It wasn't that I tolerated my husband dressing as a woman. It was that I learned I liked it. The difference matters. I didn't like it because it made him small or because it excited something illicit. I liked it because the version of him who wore dresses moved like the version of him who didn't, but allowed different parts to speak. He was kinder to his own body when dressed. He was patient with strangers and himself. I realized, slowly, and to my own surprise, that I began to prefer that version, not because the fabric did anything magic, but because his comfort did. The nights he dressed, we laughed more. He cooked in heels, like a man balancing grace and gravity. He asked me whether my hair wanted to be up or down, and I felt the question sink into a tender place that had been waiting to be consulted. We talked about transition, the way you talk about moving to a new city you've visited and loved, at the intersection of excitement and logistics. Sean didn't know, still doesn't, what he wants from hormones, from paperwork, from the long list of changes people imagine when they hear that word. We went to a gender-affirming care clinic and asked questions the way we had in couples therapy. Gentle first, then sharper. The doctor spoke in options, not edicts. We learned words like social transition and microdosing and non-binary and euphoric, and we placed them on the table like game pieces to see which ones matched our hands. Some fit, some didn't. We agreed that we were allowed to not decide. We agreed that if we did decide, it would be a decision made the way we've always made big ones, with tea, with lists, with an intermission where we go for a walk and remember we live in a world with trees. I found, in the middle of all that complexity, a very simple conviction. I didn't care if Sean transitioned or not, as long as the person I loved didn't have to hide from the air in our home. I loved Sean for Sean, which is the least poetic sentence I've ever meant with my whole body. I loved him when he wore the softest sweater and when he wore a dress that made the bar's cheap lighting jealous. I loved him when he cut his nails short and the week he learned how to paint them without painting the rest of the county. I loved him when he walked in the door at dusk with that look on his face that says he's brought me a story and it's a good one. There were hard days. A coworker made a comment about real men in a meeting, and I cradled a fury that felt like a hot stone until I could set it down somewhere safe. My mother, who is kind and often wrong, asked me if I was losing my husband, and I told her no, I was losing a narrow hallway. Sean had a panic attack in the frozen foods aisle when a stranger stared too long, and we sat on a stack of seltzer flats until his chest remembered it was big enough. We cried, but not always from fear, sometimes from relief, so sudden it knocked the breath out of us. The first time an older woman in the bar bathroom asked Sean if she could borrow her lip gloss, we both caught eyes in the mirror, laughed like thieves, and handed it over like communion. One night, even with all that progress, I asked a selfish question I'm not proud of, but am honest about. Do you love me as much as you love this? He turned toward me with a seriousness that made me brace. "Caitlin," he said, "I love you because you held the door open for me until I realized it wasn't a door, it was a horizon. I love this, me, because I can love you better when I am not busy negotiating with a closet." It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of truth that doesn't need to raise its voice. Our life now, if you came to see it, would look ordinary and then a shade brighter. We argue about the cat food subscription because the algorithm loves the cat too much. We go to drag night twice a month and have a table because Misdirection decided we should. We host game nights where half the players have glitter on their cheeks and the other half are learning that glitter has very strong opinions about longevity. Sean keeps 2 sections in his closet, and they have slowly become one. I steal his wrap dress because the pockets are rude in their generosity. He buys me a lipstick that doesn't move, even when I kiss him, like I plan to finish my life doing it. In therapy last week, the kind-eyed woman asked us what we wanted the next year to look like. I said I wanted to keep liking the person I am when my husband is honest. He said he wanted to keep learning whether the name on his driver's license fit the mouth he uses when he speaks to himself. The therapist nodded like we'd both turned in homework that would pass any class. "Remember," she said, "you don't need the world to understand your choices to make them good. You need to choose them, and you need to keep choosing each other." I don't always know how to tell people this story in a way that doesn't make them worry about me or hate him. Sometimes I don't tell it at all. It's ours, and not every good thing wants an audience. But when I do, I say, I walked in on a version of my husband I didn't know existed, and I thought it meant the end. It turned out to be an invitation. We are navigating transition, not as a cliff jump, not as a verdict, but as a series of small, brave, reversible steps. He may change his body, he may not. He has already changed his life. I have changed mine. We didn't divorce, we expanded, we didn't lose our marriage. We found more of it. Some nights, I come home early on purpose. I want the sound of the key to mean both home and something burning. I want to open our bedroom door and see him under the kind lamp, smoothing his dress, checking his eyeliner with that small, tender concentration. I want to watch him lift his face toward me and see the person I've loved since he mixed me a drink and asked permission to touch my wrist. I want to kiss him and taste the future on his mouth and say, "Hi, love, are you ready?" And he always says, no matter what he's wearing, with you, always.